Hello everybody, my name is Felicia. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're not, what's up? So today I'm going to be doing my March wrap up as well as my April TBR. March was a really good reading month for me. I have some new favorites as well as every book that I read had 3 stars and up, which is really good for me because I'm picky. The first book I read was Vega Saga Volume 1, and this story is about lovers from opposing planets that are at war. So the plot for this story is Marco and Alana trying to find a safer planet to live on so that they can raise their child, but of course bounty hunters are after them. Marco and Alana are both wanted criminals. You can't just leave your army and not expect people to try to find you. Marco as a character is this badass swordsman, yet he's a humanitarian. He's like this do-gooder that does not like to fight without cause. Fighting for him should be a last resort. He doesn't like to physically harm people. He would rather just talk everything out. Let's talk about our feelings today. And Alana is the complete opposite of him. She's blunt, sassy, shoot now and ask questions later kind of girl. The main characters were well developed. The different planets and also the different humanoid species in this story were all unique and just different. Overall, I really loved this story. I was expecting this great sci-fi adventure, but I ended up getting a lot of humor out of this book. It was so funny. It's a good time. What annoyed me is that I only bought volume 1 because I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it or not. And after I just breezed through the first volume, because it's really short, I was like, I should have got like the first 5. This book was just character introduction, planet, world building introduction, and you don't really get to like the meaty, juicy part probably until like the next few volumes, which I wish that I had. This is really just a fun and enjoyable story. The next book I read was The Black Monday Murders by Jonathan Hickman, and this is a horror graphic novel. It centers around a murder mystery and also an occult that worships the god Mammon. Mammon is the god of greed. And what's different about these worshippers is that they're not just average people. These are elite people. They are the multi-billionaires, the politicians, very high up people. The plot follows Detective Dumas, and Dumas is the detective that when a case comes to a halt, there aren't any more leads, Dumas is called. He's a detective that gets answers because he uses unorthodox methods, and he has a really good background story that deals with voodoo. And then the other side of this book deals with the occult. It takes you inside of the occult. It shows you the hierarchy and the working of this occult. What they do is they do blood sacrifices to the god Mammon, and in return, Mammon will bestow upon them wealth and power. The characters were well developed. They were interesting, intricate, detailed. They weren't one-dimensional characters. All of them were just well developed. A thing that I loved a lot about this book was the conversations that the characters had. They were so well written. I wrote down so many different things like in my journal of things that the characters say because they just resonated with me so much. And I think a good reason why I love this book so much is because I'm really heavy into like our world government conspiracies, and this was like inside of this world that's kind of like ours, government conspiracies. And what this book reminded me of, the occult Mammon, reminded me of like our world Illuminati. I loved it so much. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was absolutely perfect to me. This was a horror novel just made for me. It was bloody and gory, yet it was very intellectual. It was a balance between them both. It was so good. I will say that the plot is slow at the beginning. It does build because you have to learn the inner workings of the occult, and that did get kind of confusing because most of the characters that are in here have the same last name. The occult, when the head dies, their children usually take their spot. So they all had the same freaking last name. I was like, wait, which Rothschild was that? I don't know. So I did have to flip back to figure out who was who. I have a more detailed review in the description box if you're interested. The next book that I read was 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a BookTube favorite, so before the pitchforks come out, let me explain my rating. Most of the problems that I had with this story relied solely on the characters. Inej, I loved her as a character. She was my favorite. Kaz started off as my favorite in the story, but as the story went on, I saw like some kinks in his character development where he started to develop a love interest. I'm not gonna go into that, but I felt like that teetered from his character. Nina bored me. She was just whiny and annoying. Matthias was nothing special. He had no defining character traits. He was just the strong, handsome brute. Like, that was it. That was all he was. I was Team Jasper because he was like the comic relief, and then after a while he got annoying because he kept like picking at Wylan. I'm like, if you're gonna be a prick to everybody and not just the weakling of the group. And speaking of Wylan, who was he? What did he add to the story? Why was he there? Why? Wylan had the least amount of character development. I cannot describe his personality to you because he did not have one. He was barely a character in this story. The reason I did not enjoy this book as much as I wanted to is because I didn't like all the characters. And being that this book was heavy in character development with all the flashbacks, it was just torturous. I was like, oh my god, please not another flashback. And then like 6 of them would happen. I'm like, oh my god, can we get back to the plot, please? The part that I loved was the plot dealing with the heist. The main story in here was amazing. It was just those stinky flashbacks. The ending blew my mind, and I am so excited to read Crooked Kingdom. I feel like Six of Crows was like, hey, let me get all this character development in this one, and Crooked Kingdom is going to be like idealistic. Like, Crooked Kingdom is probably going to be perfect to me. I hope it's perfect. And then I had a little niche with the heist plot, and that was like the trump card trope. It's when the characters are in like this impossible situation, and then magically something that's like never been mentioned in the book before is all of a sudden relevant now. Jasper. It's like, how convenient for that shit. How convenient. And then at the beginning of this book, I completely forgot that this was a YA story because the characters felt a lot older and more mature than they actually are. And then the characters would say something stupid or do something dumb, and I'm like, oh yeah, they are teenagers. And I have to say, one of my most hated tropes is when a character is like a brute or a prick, just an asshole, but as soon as like the love interest comes in the picture, they just change for love. It's different now because I'm in love. I hate that trope so much, and I saw that in this book. Overall, I enjoyed this book. I just didn't like all of the characters. I will continue on with the series though. Next book that I read is Some Hell by Patrick Nathan. This book follows a young boy named Colin who's in middle school, and he's just figuring out he's gay. And he's in love with his best friend Andy. It also follows his mother Diane. Immediately at the beginning, Colin's father ends up committing suicide, and Colin feels solely responsible for his father's death. Diane, his wife, feels guilty because she was in like this emotional, confused state. Like, she didn't know if she wanted to still be married to him or if she didn't, and that kind of made her feel guilty about the suicide as well. What this book is the thought process of 2 people battling extreme depression. Both of them become suicidal, and they just emotionally spiral out of control. Colin and Diane feel like they're in hell, basically, hence the title. When I first bought this book, I thought that this was a YA story, but it's not. That took me by surprise. This book emotionally traumatized me, and I can't stop thinking about it. The author told these 2 stories so well, and he was able to just manipulate so many emotions out of me. Like, one minute I would feel so much hope and just love and joy for these characters, and then everything would just go to shit, and then my heart would just be on the floor, and I'm just like, what happened? Why did the author write this book? This is an extremely sad book, and the plot twist is like one of the most unexpected freaking plot twist ever. I did not see this ending coming at all, and I'm the kind of person that when I'm reading, I always try to figure out like the plot twist before it happened. Like, yeah, I saw that coming, but I didn't see it coming. I was nowhere near it. I didn't even scathe it. I was way off. I really like books that can just surprise me and make me feel some type of way. I have a detailed review for Some Hell, and I will leave that link in the description box if you're interested. The next book I read is Parallel Worlds by Michio Kaku. This is a non-fiction book that explores the Big Bang Theory and what happened before the Big Bang Theory, and it goes into a string theory. Science! If you're interested in sci-fi or you're writing a sci-fi novel, then this book definitely does a great job at breaking down the science behind time travel and interdimensional travel. You don't have to be a physicist to understand this book. Kaku breaks everything down to its simplest measure and tells it like a story to where a novice, a beginner will understand. It's not the easiest thing to learn and comprehend, but if you want to learn it, then you're gonna learn it. I have a full review for this book also, and I will link that in the description box as well. The next book I read was NeverNight by Jay Kristoff. NeverNight follows a Darkin named Mia Corvere, and Darkins are people that can control shadows. After the execution of Mia's father, Mia becomes orphaned and she is taken in by an assassin, and she becomes a assassin's apprentice. She ends up going to an assassin school where I think only 4 out of the 28 that go will become full-fledged assassins. I ate this story up so fast. It's dark, it's full of sarcasm. The characters are funny and freaking assassins. The world building was extremely thorough and vivid. I would say thorough because it was a lot of world building. A lot. The main characters were well developed. There were a lot of side characters that you don't care about and you won't really know much about them anyway, so they don't matter. I fell in love with Mia and her shadow cat, Mr. Kindly, and I'm like, I know that I am hooked on this series for life. The writing was not that good and there were some flaws in the overall story, but the characters were great. They were awesome. Because I like the characters so much, I kind of overlooked like the excess world building, and I overlooked like some of the bad writing in there. I'm like, I don't really care. These characters are good. I need to know what's about to happen to them. And that's the point of the story, is to fall in love with these characters and want to experience and go through the things that they go through. So I really enjoyed the story and I cannot wait to dig into God's grave. I have a full review on NeverNight and I will link that in the description box as well. The next book that I read was Milk and Honey, and this is a collection of poems about love, loss, relationship, abuse, and violence. I will say that I enjoyed probably a handful of poems out of here, some that I really took something out of, but the rest were just unremarkable and just nothing special about them. What it reminded me of is those Facebook memes of this girl laying on a beach or someone looking out into the mountains and they have a quote next to them about life. This book was just a book of memes. As I was reading some of this, I'm like, I think I saw this on Facebook before. It was still enjoyable, but it was nothing special about it. The last book is Sons of Empire by Brian McKellen, and this is an adult high fantasy novel. The young city of Atrasta is on the verge of a civil war. This war falls on the shoulders of our 3 main characters: Vlara, who is a general of a mercenary company; Ben Stike, who is a war hero in prison for questionable reasons; and Mikhail, who is a spy for Atrasta, kind of like the secret police. The plot in the story is a lot of character development. The villain isn't made clear really throughout majority of the story, but the plot was very intricate and filled with a lot of subplots that took me on twists and turns, and things that I never expected to happen happens in this story. The world building is very subtle in this story. You only get a basic understanding for Atrasta, the setting of the story, and the rest of the world is a mystery. What shines the most in this story is the characters. You get very morally gray characters in this story. Nobody is good and nobody is evil. Everybody is just out for self in this story. If they're not getting nothing out of it, then they're probably not interested in it. The side characters were also written so well in the story that most of them could have been main characters. The plot moved along really quickly. It kept my interest because of the subplots. There was so many mysteries that were being revealed in here, so it never got boring. There was always something new to learn about the characters or Atrasta, the town that they're in. The fight scenes in the story was amazing. It got me so pumped. I was like, yeah, let's go to war. When it came time for me to rate this book, I teetered between 4 stars and 5 stars, but I ultimately went with 5 stars because I couldn't find anything just wrong with the story. It was It was a fantastic epic adventure filled with like intellectual conversations, great plot story, amazing characters, and the writing was so well done. I couldn't complain about this story. It's amazing, 5 stars, and I can't wait for the second book in the series to come out. I will say that if you do plan on reading this series, I would suggest you read his previous series is, I think, the Powder Mage series. Yeah, so Sins of Empire is a continuation of the Powder Mage series. Now, if I was to go back to read the Powder Mage series, it would be like a prequel for Sins of Empire, because some of the characters that are in Sins of Empire is also in that series. I am not a fan of prequels because I already know the aftermath of it. I know what's going to happen to these characters already, and that just spoils the whole series for me. And my April TBR. I'm in such a mood this month where I don't know what I really want to read. So my TBR is kind of short and I'm leaving it open for whatever else I feel like reading this month. So I picked out 6 books that I am for sure going to read. The first one is The Wicked Deep. 2 centuries ago, 3 sisters were drowned for witchery. Now they return every summer to claim the body of a young girl, and then they lure young boys to the water to drown them for revenge upon the town. This book has similarities to Hocus Pocus, and that was my shit when I was little. The next book I'm going to read is Children of Blood and Bone. In this world, the king has banished all magic, and now the people that possess magic, the magi, are being hunted and killed. Our main character Zeely must outrun and outwit the crown prince who wants to rid the whole world of magic. When I know that I'm going to read a book, I try not to know everything about the book before I read it because I don't want any spoilers, I don't want hints, I want everything, the whole plot, characters to just be a surprise. The next book I'm going to read is Erajah and the End of Time. 12-year-old Erajah lies in order to fit in at school. One day, 3 of Erajah's classmates confronts her about all the lies that she tells, and she tries to prove them wrong and ends up releasing a demon into the world that freezes time, and it's up to her to unfreeze time and save everybody. I will also read Daughter of a Siren Queen, and this is book 2 of Daughter of a Pirate King, and I love book 1. It was so much fun. I love the characters and I can't wait to just dive into the continuation of that book. The next story I'm going to be reading is We Are the Ants, and this story is about a teenage boy that has the power to decide whether the world should be destroyed or whether he should save it. I'm really interested in his thought process of the pros and the cons of his decision of saving or destroying the world. I know that that's going to be a hard decision because there's so much bad stuff in the world that you just like just start all over, but then it's also good in the world and you're just like, maybe the good will outweigh the bad one day. So I know this decision is going to be tough, and I'm really interested to see what the boy picks. The last book that I have decided to read is Kindred by my favorite author, Octavia E. Butler. This is the first sci-fi written by a Black woman, and I had no idea of that. That is so cool. It makes me more excited to read the story. This book is a fantasy slave memoir mixed with some historical fiction. Octavia E. Butler is one of my favorite authors now, and this is my journey to read everything she has written. Her writing just blows my mind. It's so imaginative and just amazing. And that is it. Make sure you guys tell me what you're going to be reading for the month of April, and I will see you in my next video. So subscribe and bye bye.